All right, everyone, welcome back. So we've laid a lot of groundwork, right? We know the key terms, the core concepts of phenomenology, but today we're making a really important shift. We're going to move from the what to the how. We're zeroing in on Heidegger's incredibly powerful method so you can actually start using it in your own work.
So this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? I know it's on a lot of your minds, especially as you start thinking about those first papers. You've done the reading, you get the ideas, but how do you actually do phenomenology? Well, today we are going to bridge that exact gap. We're going to turn Heidegger's, let's face it, pretty dense concepts into a practical, hands-on toolkit for your own philosophical research. Here's the game plan for today. First, we'll look at the fundamental problem Heidegger says philosophy has. Then, we'll walk step by step through his three-part method: reduction, construction, and destruction. And by the time we're done, you're going to have a really clear framework to start outlining your own projects. Okay, so let's get into it. Heidegger's entire project starts with this massive claim that Western philosophy, almost from the very beginning, took a wrong turn. It got so fascinated with investigating all the things in the world that it completely forgot to ask the most basic question of all. And this right here is the heart of the issue. I mean, just think about it. Ever since Plato, philosophy has been obsessed with beings. You know, this chair, that concept, a number, a soul. We spend all our energy cataloging and analyzing the what of things. And in doing that, Heidegger says we've completely overlooked a much deeper question. This slide lays out the distinction perfectly. On one hand, you have traditional ontology asking the ontic question: what are the properties of this specific thing? But Heidegger's fundamental ontology asks the ontological question: what does it even mean for something to be in the first place? You see the difference? It's like studying all the individual leaves on the forest floor versus asking, wait a minute, what is a tree? So if we're going to tackle this huge kind of abstract question about the meaning of being with a capital B, where on earth do we start? Well, Heidegger is very clear. There's only one possible place to begin. We have to start, he says, with the one and only being that can even ask this question, and that's us. He gives this unique kind of being a special name, Dasein. It literally translates to being there. We're the entity that doesn't just exist, but we know we exist, we care about it, and we can question it.
Now, listen, this is absolutely crucial. Dasein is not just some fancy German word for human being. It points to our specific way of existing. We aren't just objects sitting in the world, like lamp or rock. We are being in the world. Our very existence is woven into the fabric of the world around us. You can think of us as the clearing in a dense forest, the one open space where being itself can even show up and become understandable. And that's why any investigation into being has to start by analyzing us, by analyzing Dasein.
Okay, so we've got our starting point, Dasein. Now we can finally get into the first real, practical step of the method. And it's a big one. It's the phenomenological reduction. Now that word reduction should be ringing some bells from our work on Husserl, right? Heidegger borrows the term directly from his teacher. But, and this is classic Heidegger, he takes the word and gives it a completely radical new meaning. He keeps the label, but he changes the entire game. And this comparison here is key. Remember, for Husserl, the reduction was all about bracketing the outside world to get at the pure structures of consciousness. Well, for Heidegger, it's almost the exact opposite. It's about bracketing our everyday, naive assumptions about a thing so that we can finally see its particular way of being in the world. So in practice, what does this actually look like? It's a fundamental shift in how you ask questions. You stop looking at the hammer, as an object made of wood and metal, and you start to see its mode of being, what Heidegger famously calls its readiness to hand. You stop asking, what is this thing? And you start asking, how is this thing? You see its being for hammering. The reduction is that crucial shift in focus from an object's properties to its way of being.
All right, so once the reduction has shifted our gaze, once we're really looking at the being of a being, what's next? The next step is to actively build up an understanding of what it is we're now seeing. And this is what he calls the construction.
The key insight here is that the structure of a thing's being isn't just sitting there waiting for us to passively observe it. You can't just read it off the surface. It has to be actively projected and articulated by us, by the philosopher doing the work. This is exactly what construction is. You're building the scaffolding, so to speak. You are revealing the hidden formal scaffolding, those essential structures that let a being be what it is in the first place. For Dasein, Heidegger calls these structures existentials, things like being in the world, care, temporality. This construction phase is where you map out those structures and show how they all hang together.
And that brings us to our final step. Now, this one has the most intimidating name, for sure, but I'd argue it's the most powerful and probably the most misunderstood part of Heidegger's entire method. He calls it destruction.
So that word, destruction, it sounds pretty negative, doesn't it? It sounds like our job is to go in and just demolish our entire philosophical history. But believe me, that is not what Heidegger is getting at all. This quote gets to the real heart of it. Destruction is actually a positive act. It's an act of recovery. The whole point is to dismantle the hardened, crusty layers of traditional concepts that have built up over centuries so we can get back to the living roots, back to the original raw experiences that those concepts were trying to capture in the first place. Heidegger's own student, Hans-Georg Gadamer, really clarified this with a crucial linguistic point. In German, if you want to talk about demolition or razing something to the ground, you use the word Zerstörung. But Heidegger deliberately chose a different, more specific word, Destruction. He meant it as a careful dismantling, an upbau, a taking apart of what's been covered up so we can see the original foundations again.
And this is exactly the approach you're going to take in your papers. You'll pick a traditional concept, maybe justice or truth or beauty, and you're not going to throw it out. Instead, you're going to carefully dismantle it, piece by piece, to find the original, lived experience that big, abstract concept was trying to get at before it got so rigid and stale.
Okay, let's put this all together. We've gone through the theory. Now let's turn this into a practical guide for the task right in front of you, outlining that first paper using this very method. Here you go, your 3-step method. Pick your topic. Let's say it's justice. Step 1, the reduction. Shift your focus from what justice is, some abstract definition, to how justice actually shows up as a lived experience in the world. Step 2, the construction. Articulate the structures that make that experience of justice even possible. And finally, step 3, the destruction. Dismantle the history of the concept of justice to recover the living, breathing experience it was first meant to describe. Always remember, the whole point of this method is to overcome that forgetfulness of being that we started with. It's about taking these huge foundational concepts that have become dry and abstract and making them vital and meaningful again by tracing them all the way back to their origins in our own existence. And that's your starting point. Think about a philosophical concept that's always felt a bit disconnected or maybe just confusing to you. Now you have the tools. You can begin to take it apart, not to break it, but maybe to finally understand it for the very first time.